Hello everybody, I'm Georgia Fatiago, and in this screencast, I will discuss how multilinguals acquire subject-verb agreements. This material has been jointly prepared by myself and Nikos Ambrazis at the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. Start by presenting what is a subject-verb agreement, and I will then outline some key points in how it is encoded across languages. Then I will present you how subject-verb agreement is acquired in monolingual and multilingual speakers. Finally, I will discuss some typical errors and processing difficulties that multilingual groups face, and I will close with some suggestions that can be applied when teaching multilingual classes. Subject-verb agreement refers to the encoding of formal linking between the subject and the predicate. That is, it is the marking of verbs for grammatical features of the subject of a sentence. Some grammatical features that it encodes are person and number, and there is variability in the way they are marked across languages. Noticeably, subject-verb agreement is pervasive, as around 70% of the world languages instantiate formulation of it. Thus, its acquisition marks a milestone in grammar development, point in which I will return shortly after. Starting with a short presentation of how languages encode subject-verb agreement, we should first consider that languages of the world are further distinguished between overt and null subject languages. To better illustrate this distinction, let's see how English, an overt subject language, expresses SVA. As shown in the paradigm, English is a language that minimally expresses subject-verb agreement via suffixes. The obligatory presence of an overt subject pronoun leaves no ambiguity on how the verb can be interpreted. In English, only the third person singular is morphologically marked with S. The copula is an exception, as it retains a fuller paradigm of person markings. I am, you are, he is, we are, you are, etc. Compared to English, German has a richer verbal inflection morphology, but not enough to enable its speakers to constantly omit subjects. In this language, both the person and number grammatical features are marked this way. German has 4 inflectional forms: st, t, n. However, the first person marking is often omitted in colloquial speech. Moving to null subject languages, we see that the inflectional morphology is very rich. Starting with the paradigm of Turkish, we note that all subject pronouns may be omitted as the verb suffix marks adequately number and person. Only the third person singular has a bare suffix. Moreover, in oral speech, the third person plural marking is also preferentially omitted, especially when the subject refers to a human entity. Thus, both singular and plural third person subjects appear with bare verb forms and consist of a difficult case to acquire and comprehend. Spanish is also a null subject language with a robust morphological paradigm, as illustrated in this example. All subject pronouns may be omitted as all verb forms are reflected. Suffixes mark adequately number and person. The same counts for Greek and other null subject languages. In fact, speakers of null subject languages rarely use overt personal pronouns, and this choice is largely regulated by other factors as discourse and pragmatics. Although subject-verb agreement seems to be a phenomenon rather simple to acquire, there are some cases of special interest. As we have seen up to now, number marking is one of the most common morphosyntactic features encoded in subject-verb agreement. The number of a subject is mostly thought of as its grammatical number. In the examples we see, number is denoted through inflectional morphology. The affix s marks plurality of the noun in English and German, while lar is the plural affix of Turkish. Subjects also have a conceptual or notional number. This is determined by whether the noun is thought to refer to one or multiple entities. Cases in which the grammatical and conceptual number of a word do not coincide, as scissors, pants, or collective nouns, team, family, give rise to uncertainty in language users about whether the verb that is supposed to agree with the noun phrase should be in singular or plural. Uncertainty about number agreement can also arise when the subject-noun phrase is syntactically complex, as illustrated in the following examples, which we discuss next. From the perspective of bilingual and multilingual acquisition, such cases of optional agreement are particularly interesting because they are gradient phenomena that are not usually taught, so the constraints determining number agreement preferences need to be acquired through naturalistic exposure and use. So if a bilingual or multilingual child has already acquired a language which differs in the realization of subject-verb agreement, it is interesting to see what aspects of its computation are vulnerable to less than optimal input and acquisition conditions, and what strategies she or he may use to resolve number conflicts. Here, these example formations illustrate complex noun phrases in which a subject-verb agreement is driven by categorical rules of grammar. The key to the cabinets receives a non-distributed reading and is thus conceptually considered one single entity, triggering singular affixation in the verb that could follow. On the other hand, the label of the bottles is conceptually plural as it receives a distributive reading. This case is more prone to attraction errors, that is, language users may be frequently mistaken and combine such formations with singular verb affixation, although this would be ungrammatical. Pseudopartitives are complex noun phrases in which the first noun, NP1, denotes a proportion of the second one, NP2. In this example from German, eine tute Nüsse, the pseudopartitive is formed by combining two nouns without preposition in between and allows for both singular and plural marking on the verb. Research in English also revealed some variability in the choice of agreement controller, that is, whether verbal inflection agrees with the singular or plural affix of the first noun. We distinguish three types of pseudopartitives depending on the semantic nature of the first noun. Container words refer to an object that contains its content within a defined space, as is a glass of water, and can be referred to on their own, a glass. Collection words also refer to some kind of special configuration, but more loosely than container words, as is a pile of shirts. They cannot stand alone. Last, measure words can be abstract and refer to a quantity of something with no implication of special configuration, as is the example a lot of girls or a bevy of girls. Container words are more likely to be represented as single entities in a speaker's mind and linked with singular verb inflection, while measure words are more likely to be represented as multiple entities and combined with plural verbs. Noticeably, inflectional marking of the second noun depends on whether it refers to a countable or uncountable entity. Lastly, we refer to some examples of coordinate subject constructions. Null subject languages, such as Greek and Albanian, allow for postverbal subjects. In the Greek example, the postverbal coordinate subject construction John and Mary triggers plural marking, that is, full number agreement, while singular marking, that is, partial number agreement, is also allowed. Partial number agreement is also allowed in other languages, as Arabic, Slovenian, Hindi, and Serbo-Croatian. Other languages prefer full to partial number agreement, as in the Albanian example, where a question mark indicates that singular verb affix is not strongly accepted by the speakers of this language. Cross-linguistically, monolingual children produce a target-like inflected verb forms in their speech very early. For example, Spanish-speaking children under 2.5 years old produce less than 5% errors. In languages like German and English, there is an initial phase where toddlers produce optional infinitive errors, that is, bare or untensed verb forms. Moreover, in German, person distinctions are made before number is acquired. Performance is adult-like at around age 3 for German and 4.5 for English. Comprehension is more cognitively demanding than production and comes later. Turning to the bilingual multilingual acquisition of subject-verb agreement, we use the label 2L1 for children who acquire more than one language from birth, and EL2 for learners with an early age of onset before age 3. As research shows, these groups do not differ from monolinguals. The subject-verb agreement paradigm is acquired after less than 1 year of exposure approximately. The label CL2 is used for child second language learners with an age of onset after 4 years. These children take much longer to acquire subject-verb agreement than children with an early age of onset and make overgeneralizations of verb inflections even after 2 years of exposure. Surface overlap with regard to the specific phenomenon in their languages or other factors such as the domain where the languages are spoken, family or school, are also to be considered for possible explanation. Overall, subject-verb agreement is mastered by simultaneous and early sequential bilingual multilingual speakers before WH questions and subordinate clause constructions, while a typical language acquisition, as is the case of SLI, follows different stages. Research shows that abstract semantic and syntactic features of verbal morphology are intact among late sequential bilinguals as well, while morphological target-like production is the most difficult to acquire. The most common error patterns observed are attraction errors, where the verb erroneously agrees with an intervening noun bearing number specification different from the head noun of the subject. So a child may be more frequently mistaken and use plural verb affix in a sentence like "the son of the neighbors always come back late," than use plural verb forms in sentences like "the computer of the programs of the experiment" or "the computer with the program of the experiments are broken." Noticeably, long distance between the subject and the verb renders the construction difficult to comprehend and rare to produce in spontaneous speech. Other error cases also observed in the first stages of first language acquisition are the use of bare verb forms in contexts where adult grammar does not allow it, as is omission errors, or the erroneous agreement of verb inflection with a person other than the subject, as would be the use of third singular affix combined with the second singular subject. A final note with respect to processing of subject-verb agreement, that is, findings about how the parser works. Generally, research reveals no qualitative differences among child groups in their processing routines of grammaticality and ungrammaticality. It is only that late sequential bilinguals need longer time to react, and this is regulated by factors such as how difficult the task they have to respond is, whether it is in oral or written form, and whether their other language or languages differ in the realization of subject-verb agreement. So if you meet children who face difficulties in subject-verb agreement, this probably means that they were first exposed to your target language very recently. To help them acquire fast and efficiently, use simple short utterances. If their other language or languages do not allow a free word order, but the target language does, prefer the most frequent word order and do not alternate among the available options. Keep the distance between the subject and verb minimal and avoid intervening terms. because this adds burden and confusion. Besides, if their other language or languages differ, there is conflict between conceptual and grammatical number, or the construction you are dealing with is language specific, explain the language you are teaching, providing many examples, and use focused exercises to make them practice in specific constructions. To summarize, in this screencast, I presented what is a subject-verb agreement and how it is encoded across languages. I also referred to cases of special interest where there is conflict between grammatical and notional number or optionality in subject-verb agreement. Then I presented how SVA is acquired in monolingual and multilingual speakers and discussed some typical errors and processing difficulties. I finally suggested some teaching tips that can help multilingual learners in their acquisition of subject-verb agreement.